Okay, so this is like an orbit, so we can play with that. So when we are doing some click like this, everything is going to here, and we can do some collapsing. So it means the sun is going to attracting all of the other things to it. You can zoom in and zoom out. You can see. You can also do the exploding. It's kind of like collision. Pretty impressive, right? So you just creating kinds of like a game things with just one single prompt, and all of this one is like kinds of like having physics that is pretty impressive. So this is what Fable 5 can do. To have more item, actually I do the another experiment with GPT 5.5, so just give you some experience. Okay, so I managed to open the one that built by GPT 5.5 here. So it also have some feature collapsing and so on. But to be honest, I think the way that GPT 5 Fable 5 is doing is much more. Let's look at the prompts. So the prompt is create a stunning interactive browser demo using Three.js with single file, and do not use external image. Everything is gravity force is interactive physics sculptural with hundreds of glowing metallic particles, rigid body, ribbon trail that they most feel like a polysic reptile tech demo, not a toy. So comparing this between the two, I think what Fable is creating is much more impressive. Orbit, collapsing, or explode. The both three are pretty impressive. You can click to attract the item. Here you can click, and you can also do in the space to freeze everything and do the reset and drag the orbit. That is pretty cool. So just to announcing, so we have Fable 5 in AgenticFlow now. You can go into PixelML and create Fable 5, or if you have the key from Anthropic, you can also log into Anthropic and choose Fable 5 as well. Okay, yeah. So welcome to Office Hour 51. So today we are going to talk about like a few things. So let me open our changelog. So the changelog today is going to include a few things. So majority is going to be the around Fable 5, and we also are having the new Sonnet 5 and Opus 4.8 model update, as you can have in here. Apart from that, we are also having some other clearer choice and builder between frontier capability, enterprise reliability, and everyday speed. We also have the massive upgrade on AgenticFlow CLI version 1.10.7. This is including new autonomous DEX workforce blueprint, a new MAS graph building playbook, workflow in workforce routing support, and a much larger CUI shipped blueprint catalog. So what we can have in here is that we have the new model. So we have Sonnet 4.5. This is the also new model that released by Anthropic. It is quite recommended for everyday production agent with high volume coding and document and support and content work. For the Opus 4.8, it is for complex enterprise coding and also longer agent section where reliability really matter. For Fable 5, this one is actually the highest capability reasoning for deep research and long horizon planning and vision heavy workflow. For this one, if there's a because Anthropic actually releasing this one, and also they put like the safety classifier refusal. So if it's a yes, then it will fall back into another model. If it's not meeting this safety, it will return to Fable result. So you can take a look on here, Fable 5 Anthropic. Yeah, so they are actually having this one. Okay, so So Fable 5 will restore after like the few period of like US government apply the export control. So the timeline that you can have in here is that you will still able to using some of the Fable 5 through the Cloud Code subscription until July 7. After that, it will be available for usage credit, and also for the API is available as always. So we are also integrated with the API on this one. And because Fable 5 is kind of like cyber security risk, so they are going to take very severe control on this one. So they will have a safe classifier. So some of your requests are going to route into other model if needed, and on those are called classifier. So it's like a smaller automatic AI system that during interaction detect if they perform any harmful, and they will do it. And this is like how they positioning this one. So before, the normal safeguard is going to have your like classifier allow, and also some a block for safety margin, and also they will block the ambiguous and harmful entirely. Right now they are adding sooner more, so they will having larger safety margin on this part. So basically there is some other like jailbreak that you can try to do on this one, but I think you need to have pay more attention to this. And then one more thing I would like to mention is that on Fable 5, they will retain your data for 30 days in order to do analyzing. So there is no other option to opting out of this one. So please be aware if you are using Fable 5 in your daily work, that is something that you need to be aware. I'm also running a kind of like ISS tracker, the normal one that we are using, and this one is actually output of Sonnet 5. This is quite okay with the atmosphere around the globe and so on. For Fable 5, I think this one is much more smooth. They have atmosphere, they have everything with the ISS here. I think we have one shot this one, so I'm not like kind of like have. This one is created by Gemini 3.1, as you can see. So I think the major difference is that Fable 5 actually having the Earth with atmosphere around it, and we also having other, which this one is like GOM 5.2, which is I showing you last week. That is quite okay, but it's maybe not that one that we need. So this is also comparable to GPT 5.5 on this part, right? So I'm also doing some other like experimentation with Fable 5 as well. So for example, like this one. So I was creating a small demo. It is called like a softball voxel, so I can just have a logo, and you can see that it is actually simulating the free physics very nicely, and Fable 5 is just one shot of this one. So that is quite impressive as per the model along on this one, you can see. So this is also just one prompt. I can also doing some kinds of like slide. I can like cut the logo in half or in fourth in here, or I can just explode it. So you just click here, it will explode. Okay, explode. And maybe I can drag this one on the top, and everything else is going there. That's just quite cool actually. This is very impressive to build in this one, because this kinds of like animation and physical is actually require a lot of like mathematical calculation, and Fable 5 is really good at it. Alright, so what we can do with AgenticFlow and Fable 5, I think, so what you can do is perhaps that you can using Fable 5 in AgenticFlow or maybe in PixelML Open Router and put it in Ishi, or maybe you can using Cloud Code with Fable 5, and then this is what it creates for me, our multi-agent system, where it just one shot the entire multi-agent system. What this is does is that it's going to have the agent that do the planning, and it's going to run the workflow. We have other researcher that doing the, and also critic, reviser, and also editor to have final result. So this is also like I run 1 hour ago. So I was asking the agent that say evaluate whether Apple is still deserved spot on our conservative long-term watch list after recent run toward on-time high. I care about valuation sketch and so on. So when with this one, the planner actually creating the planning with mission summary and so on, and it's going to run the workflow to trigger. And this one, and it will save the workflow draft, which is like what is the core snapshot that have been reported from the other. Then the critic is going to reviewing the feedback or the overall impression, and it's going to have some QA note where the researchers will continue to do web search on the other things, and then also on and so on. And finally, it's going to hand over it back for the researcher for the additional research route. And what else is doing is that it's going to save the revised draft here, and it's going to kind of like finally hand over to editor. So the editor actually writing a final deliverable where you have the executive summary, finding by research question, risk and caveat, and so on and so on, with next step and so on. So all of this one actually one shot by Fable 5 using EG. You can see in here. So this is one shot that I create. So it actually having is going to different route on this one. It's going to doing the other things. It's creating the workforce ID and even like public run ID for me, and it evaluate, and it have the CEO, researcher, and engineer in order to create this agent. And in my workforce and so on, actually it's going to creating different agent in my list. You can see, so it's creating the planner, the researcher, the critic, and editor, where all of these one is going to work together. And all of this one, you can actually click into the details. You can see like what are the prompt that the Fable 5 was creating to the model, and also using the version as well. And the beauty of AgenticFlow is that you can always changing the planner into some like stronger model. So for example, like if I would like to have the planner to be Fable 5 instead of like Gemini 3 4.1, I just confirm and save. And then later on, when I go into my workforce in here, just click here, and I click on this planner, and I will go into setting, and I can see actually the details of this agent. Okay, the instruction, and also what is the model is it using. And clicking here. Yeah, you can see that the model is changed to Fable 5 already. So later, every time that this workforce is running, it's going to kind of like having all of the information that already cooked in this one. And just next time, the planner is instead of like only doing like high level planning like GPT 4.0, it is going to using the entire list that I create for that. And you can also clicking on the other, for example, like we have a researcher here, and also we can click on this one. We can see what is this agent is doing, and what is there. As you can see, it's going to use tool. So this agent is actually creating by Fable 5. It is like giving the task, like you as a research specialist for autonomous research decks, you receive a mission plan with a research question and a draft. So it actually very well clean apply the input that this agent is receiving, and it is also using plugin, which is the tool that we already baked in AgenticFlow with web search and web retrieval, and it instructing the agent into doing something like this. And because everything is connected and work together, so all of this one is going to work together in one organized workflow in the multi-agent system. So that is something that I think Fable 5 is really good at. It's very comprehensive in reasoning capability, and is it actually can driving the creating the entire workforce by its own. Is basically like creating all of the workflow that necessary, like even like the stock price target brief and client website audit brief, or even like creating different sub agent in here, and then finally creating a workforce which is combination of these guys working together. So I think these are very impressive capability of Fable 5. I strongly suggest that you pay attention and try to use that. So what else? So we are so apart from this one, we are also adding a new update into CLI. Before moving that, so we also having this diagram, so it will let you see like where everything is sitting together, because we also including like Opus 4.8 and Sonnet 5. So as you can see here, so Sonnet 4.6 was the previous model. It kind of like have different rating, low, medium, high, and it costs per task around $20. But for now, if you can see like the Sonnet 5, the cost is like under $1 and the 60% pass rate of the agentic search performance. So it means if you would like to have some of the planner that doing the research like what we just did, and you should using the Sonnet 5, and it's actually having very great performance. And there are other like agentic computer use capability as well. You can see like the Sonnet 5 is very good, like kinds of like price performance model. And yeah, there's some integration node that we also discover as well. So for example, like for the Fable 5, we have some it is stop reason refuser. So it means like they are having some classifier, and if there is a safety classifier that decline the request, this one will be triggered. So we will, in case that you have this one, and I would suggest that you instruct the agent to having the fallback on this part, and using the effort and volume accordingly. Okay, and how to choose the new model? So in Claude, Fable 5 and Opus and Sonnet is available in AgenticFlow. You can go into any agent to edit them. For example, like this one, and then you just click on this one, and then you can choose the model in Sonnet 5 or Fable 5 in PixelML Open Router, or Anthropic on this one. Yeah, Sonnet 5 and Fable 5. So that is how you click that. Okay, because this model is a premium model, so we are only able to support by these two providers. We are also adding a new like AgenticFlow CLI new version 1.10.7. So this one is a massive update comparing to last one. So we are adding a new autonomous DEX workforce blueprint. So this is exactly the same with this one, where we have Fable 5 actually research and also cooking this one. So we give you this blueprint. So when you download a CLI version 1.10.7, you can have your agent to actually creating the planner and also other researcher and critic and automatic revision and editor as well. And we're also having a new like workflow in workforce routing. So it is deployable, runnable workflow can be served at deterministic route inside a higher autonomy workforce. So it means a workflow that has been deployed can be triggered and called by a workforce. So this is a bit kind of complicated, but actually you can just pasting this chain log into your EC or maybe your Claude Code, and it will be able to use too. We're also introducing a new MAS graph building playbook. So this one is actually going to having some rules for hand automated workforce graph. It will require output hub, and so we were using a special tool like code other workflow in order to trigger other workflow. And the bigger one I think in this release is we are releasing 379 blueprint. So what is a blueprint? Okay, so blueprint is something like this. So if you follow our channel and you see that recently we actually posting a lot of like video that related to this one. So one prompt to workflow, one prompt to something. So what we call is blueprint. So, but we decide that maybe instead of like just posting every video and also give you all of this one, I would rather like just give you a lot of like that, which 300 workflow of this one, so that you can also apply and explore yourself without like having us like make it for you. So it is including 300 workflow. It is convert a lot of area where we using Fable 5 and other like frontier model to analyzing the real world use case. We look into other competitor in order to see what they are doing and also to convert into something that AgenticFlow compatible. So these 379 blueprint, including 362 workflow, 3 agent blueprint, and another 14 workforce blueprint, it's going to help you to do from email to structure it, RSS, digest email, competitor URL snapshot, job package, and so on, and so on, and so on. So I would suggest that you just go ahead and download a CLI, throw that to Claude Code, and if you have Fable 5, let it cook based on that. And there's some other thing that we also up there as well with smoother agent and workflow execution and some other things. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So for today, for more details, you can actually reading the changelog, and also we also updating the documentation on the CLI update include as well. And for today, we are going to go through a few kinds of like workflow blueprint. This one actually part of like the 379 workflow. So if you like it or though you don't like it, you actually can just play around with the other. But because we would like to demonstrate how easy it is, where you can just copy this prompt and then throw into your favorite agent of choice like Cloud Code, Codex, or maybe Ishi, in order to let it cook for you, because it's already summer 2026 already. You should not building the workflow agent and workforce by yourself, because you need to debug it anyway to fix it and ensure it's working. So you should have an agent that do it on behalf of you. And AgenticFlow and also AgenticFlow CLI is a first class agent compatible platform that can help you with this. And I don't know, you just need to copy this one and send them and see how this goes. Or if you would like to have some suggestion and so on, you can go here, watch the first video in this one. Rick will allow you like how you can install in the first one, do this one, and then you can have it many. If you don't know to do what next, watch the second video and then see how Rick is just one prompt and it's creating the entire workflow for you. And follow through next week and the week after, we can release more workflow and also one click like this one, because right now we believe that the platform is maturity enough in order to handle these kinds of like complex workflow. Right now, I think the complexity of the problem, the platform is actually solvable by like using an agent that's supporting use already. We write a lot of documentation and YouTube video for you, and I hope that you can have a look on that. Yeah, so if in case that you really need some like fundamental usage, I would strongly suggest that you re-watching our video in this AgenticFlow 101. It's worth having for a while already, where you can have like the this one. So this is a 10 video that fundamentally walk you through welcome, explain what is the agent, how you build your first agent, explain the workflow, how you build workflow, how you can do MCP setup, plug in and use plugin and so on. Those are some fundamental basic, but I would suggest that you should pair with an agent in order to help you. It will make you move much faster. All right, I think that's it for my side. I hope that this is not too much rambling and so on. We will continue to update. AgenticFlow is remain online and continue to update. So I hope that we'll see you in the next office hour. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the AgenticFlow channel. In this episode, we are using Codex together with the AgenticFlow CLI to build a network vulnerability report, a security triage packet in just a couple of minutes. Let me set the scene first. If you have ever run a scan against a server, you know the output is rarely the hard part. The hard part is what comes after turning a pile of raw findings into something a team can actually act on. Which issues matter most? What is the likely impact? What should we fix first? And what do we tell the people who need to know? Doing that by hand for every scan is slow and easy to get wrong. That is exactly the kind of repetitive triage work this blueprint is designed to take off your plate. Here you can see the prompt we are using. We ask the AgenticFlow CLI to deploy the network vulnerability report pack blueprint, and we feed it a set of scan findings. In our example, we have a host on an internal staging API with open ports for SSH and Nginx support for TLS 1.2 and 1.3. By a finding that HTTP correctly redirects to HTTPS but is missing the HSTS header, and another finding that SSH password authentication is still enabled. These are the kinds of raw signals a scanner spits out. Now, the report policy is the important part. There we ask the workflow to create a security triage report with severity levels, likely CVE lookup targets, remediation steps, and a notification draft, but strictly as a draft. And we are very explicit. It must not claim that it actually ran a scanner, wrote any files, sent a message over Telegram or email, called a CV database, or took any external action. Now this matters because a security report you cannot trust is worse than no report at all. Bother keeping the model in a drafting role and making it state its assumptions is what makes the output safe to hand to a real engineer. When we run it, Codex reads the prompt, checks that the AgenticFlow CLI is stable, and then deploys the workflow on AgenticFlow and runs it once. Let us walk through what comes back. Dara first, there is an executive summary. the 2 or 3 sentences you would put at the top of a ticket or an email, then a findings table where each issue is listed with the severity, so you can immediately see what is critical versus what is informational. Next, the CV lookup targets the specific things worth researching, so an analyst is not starting from a blank page. After that, a remediation plan with concrete steps, enable HSTS, disable SSH password authentication in favor of keys, and so on. Then a notification draft you can adapt and send to your team. And finally, a clear list of assumptions so everyone knows exactly what the report is based on. To use this yourself, you will first need the AgenticFlow CLI installed on your machine. If you have not set that up yet, check our earlier videos for a step-by-step guide. And while we are using Codex in this episode, the very same prompt works just as well inside Claude Code or other coding agents, so use whichever you prefer. But one nice detail, the blueprint prioritizes AgenticFlow's built-in nodes, which means when it runs, it consumes AgenticFlow credits. It will not quietly burn through your other model credits. But so once it is finished, we can jump straight over to AgenticFlow and review the entire workflow visually, just to confirm that every step was built and connected the way we expect. Great habit. This is a great habit. You see exactly how your inputs flow through each node to produce the final report. And that is the whole idea. We started with a handful of raw scan findings, and with a single prompt, we ended up with a prioritized, ready to share security brief. Ever think about how often your team does the same triage? Every scan, every audit, every new host. Turning it into a reusable workflow means the boring error-prone part happens the same way every time, and your engineers spend their time on the fixes instead of the formatting. But I would really encourage you to try this with your own scan data. Watch what it produces, connect it to how your team actually works, and tune it to fit your process. Man, thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to AgenticFlow channel. Episode we are using Codex together with the AgenticFlow CLI to build a market intelligence brief in just a couple of minutes. Let me set the scene. Market research is one of those tasks that is genuinely valuable but painfully slow to do well. So back with Codex, where you gather signals from different regions, different sources, different conversations and tools. So we are back with Codex MB, and then you have to make sense of it all, what is actually happening, where the opportunity is, and what you should do about it. Most of that time goes into organizing and structuring, not into the thinking itself. That is exactly the part this blueprint automates. Here you can see the prompt we are using. So may we ask the AgenticFlow CLI to deploy the market intelligence brief pack blueprint, and we give it a research topic. In this case, so we have the demand for AI workflow in automation in regulated industries, along with a set of raw market signals we have collected. So those signals span 3 regions, and this is where it gets interesting. So in Southeast Asia, banks and media teams are actively piloting AI workflow tools, but they worry about compliance. In the United States, operations teams are asking specifically for human in the loop governance and audit trails. And in the European Union, buyers are prioritizing privacy-first deployments and strong model governance. We are back with so on their own, these are just scattered observations. The workflow's job is to turn them into a coherent point of view. When we run it, Codex reads the prompt, deploys the workflow on AgenticFlow, and runs it through once. Let me walk through what comes back. Back with the first an executive summary, the short, sharp version you would put in front of a leadership team. Freakier, and then regional insights broken down market by market, so you can see how Southeast Asia differs from the US and the EU. The next, an opportunity ranking. So we are back with Codex 2 Whisters, which is the part most people skip when they are rushing. It tells you where to focus first and starting to chase everything at once. After that, the competitive risks you should keep an eye on. And finally, a set of recommended actions. So the brief ends with something you can actually do, not just something to read. Notice how the raw input and the structured output map onto each other. Put in messy, you put your renal observations, and you get back a prioritized decision-ready brief. That transformation is the whole value. And to use this yourself, you will first need the AgenticFlow CLI installed. If you have not done that yet, our earlier videos walk through the setup step by step. Adding Code and we are using Codex here. The exact same prompt works inside Claude Code or other coding agents. So pick whichever you are most comfortable with. This is a nice detail worth mentioning. As we enter the blueprint prioritizes AgenticFlow's built-in nodes, so when it runs, it only consumes AgenticFlow credit 6, no video, and it will not quietly spend your other model credit 6. The code, once it is finished, we jump over to AgenticFlow and review the entire workflow visually. Carve and habit. This is a good habit. You can see exactly how your topic and signals flow through each step to produce the final brief. And confirm and everything was built correctly. About often think about how often your team does this kind of research. Market a new market every new quarterly review. Every time leadership asks what is happening in a space. See Ami bucket if you do it by hand, it takes hours and the format is different every time. Turning it into a reusable workflow means the structure is consistent, the turnaround is minutes. In person code to you and your analysts spend the energy on judgment instead of formatting. So I would really encourage you to try this with your own topic and your own signals. A lock for care what it produces, connect it to how your team actually makes decisions and adjust it to fit. I'm Return Miguel, and thanks so much for watching. If you found this useful, please subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next. Everyone, and welcome back to the AgenticFlow channel. In this episode, we are using Codex together with the AgenticFlow CLI to build a stock price target brief in just a couple of minutes. Let me set this up. If you follow more than a handful of companies, you know how much work goes into keeping a consistent read on each one. You check the quote, you skim the news, you try to remember what your thesis was, you note the risks, and you figure out what to look at next. Do that across a whole watch list, and it becomes a real chore. And worse, you tend to look at each company a little differently, which makes them hard to compare. This blueprint gives you one consistent, repeatable brief for any ticker. Here you can see the prompt we are using. We asked the AgenticFlow CLI to deploy the stock price target brief blueprint with a few simple inputs. The ticker, which is AAPL, the company name, Apple, and an investment style. In our case, a conservative long-term watch list approach. That investment style matters because it tells the workflow how to frame everything that follows. When we run it, Codex reads the prompt, deploys the workflow on AgenticFlow, and runs it once. Let me walk through the output. First, a quote snapshot so you can see where the stock stands right now. Then the key news drivers, the handful of things actually moving the story rather than every headline. Borlen next, a watch rating that is aligned to your stated investment style. So a conservative long-term view is judged on conservative long-term terms. After that, a risk checklist, which is the part that keeps you honest, the specific things that could go wrong or change your mind. And finally, a clear list of the next data to pull so you always know your follow-up before you close the tab. Now, one very important note. This is a research and organization tool, not financial advice. It structures information so that you can make your own decision. It is not telling you to buy or sell anything. Keeping that boundary clear is exactly why the output is framed as a brief and a checklist, not a recommendation. To use this yourself, you will first need the AgenticFlow CLI installed. Our earlier videos cover the setup if you have not done it yet. And while we are using Codex in this episode, the same prompt works just as well in Claude Code or another coding agent, so use whichever you like. One detail worth calling out, the blueprint prioritizes AgenticFlow's built-in nodes, which means it only consumes AgenticFlow credits when it runs. But once it is done, we can jump over to AgenticFlow and review the whole workflow visually, confirming that each step was built and connected correctly. It is satisfying to see your single ticker flow through the nodes and come out the other side as a complete brief. Here is where this really pays off. Value is not any one brief. It is that every stock on your watch list gets looked at the same way every time. Same structure, same risk lens, same follow-up format. But that consistency is what makes a watch list actually useful, and it is almost impossible to keep up by hand. So I would encourage you to try this with your own tickers and your own investment style. Run it across a few names, see how the briefs compare, and tune the framing to match how you think about investing. But for that, thanks so much for watching. If this was helpful, please subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the AgenticFlow channel. So on this episode, we are using Claude Code together with the AgenticFlow CLI to build a sales call objection coach in just a couple of minutes. Let me set the scene. Every sales team sits on a gold mine of information that mostly goes to waste their call recordings. So we are back with Codex. Buried in those conversations are the real objections, the concerns people actually raise. So we are back. Codex and the moments a rep could have asked one more question and changed the outcome. But nobody has time to go back. Listen carefully and turn every call into coaching. So with Codex, so we're back. Lost. The lessons get lost. The same objections trip up the team again next week. This blueprint is built to fix exactly that. I here you can see the prompt we are using. And if we ask the AgenticFlow CEO to deploy the sales code objection, coach pack blueprint so the Hodexa with and we give it a call transcript between an account executive and a prospect. In this conversation, the prospect raises a few very familiar concerns. So we are back with Codex. They worry implementation will take months. The budget is tight this quarter. A security review will be needed before approving any vendor. And then they want a clear rollout plan before involving their VP. If you have ever sold anything, you have heard all of these. Now the coaching policy is important. So we ask the workflow to identify the objections, the underlying buyer concerns, the discovery questions the rep missed, the recommended next steps. Slack style coaching feedback, but strictly as a draft analysis. And we are explicit that it must not claim it actually pulled a recording, created a file, or sent anything to Slack. Where that honesty is what makes the output safe to share with a real rep, because it is clearly a coaching draft, not a record of actions taken. In Backlog series, when we run it, Claude Code reads the prompt, deploys the workflow on AFlow on AgenticFlow, and runs it once. Let me walk through what comes back. First, an objection table serve, which lays out each objection the prospect raised and what is really behind it. Are back with Codex context, then the misdiscovery questions, the specific things the rep could have asked to move the deal forward. Clear next steps, so the rep knows exactly what to do after this call. We are back with Levi, and finally a Slack style coaching feedback draft written the way a manager would actually message it, so it is ready to adapt and send. With that, and notice the transformation here. You start with a raw, messy transcript and you end with structured, specific, actionable coaching. First, that is the difference between a call that teaches your team something and a call that just disappears. To use this yourself, you will first need the AgenticFlow CLI installed. Our earlier videos walk through the setup if you have not done it yet. I concur there, and while we are using Claude Code in this episode, the exact same prompt works in Codex or other coding agents, so use whichever you prefer. In the peer review, one nice detail, the blueprint prioritizes AgenticFlow is built in Node, so it only consumes AgenticFlow credits when it runs. He cultivator with that once it is finished, we can jump over to AgenticFlow and review the entire workflow visually, confirming every step was built correctly. You can see exactly how the transcript flows through each node to produce the coaching package. Here is why this matters at scale. This one coach call is nice. That's about the workflow that turns every call into consistent coaching, means your whole team gets better week over week. Go turn that end in, and your managers spend their time actually mentoring instead of transcribing. If we dive into the objection, stop being surprises, and your reps walk into the next call more prepared. So I would really encourage you to try this with your own call transcripts. And the archery, watch the patterns. Its curve is sources connected to how you already coach your team and tune it to your sales process. But that we off of it. I think thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the AgenticFlow channel. So we are back with Codex. So we are using Claude Code to get together with the AgenticFlow CLI to build a maps lead enrichment workflow in just a couple of minutes. So we are back with Codex. Let me set the scene. If your team does any kind of local outreach, you know the drill. So you pull a list of businesses from maps or a directory rect restaurants, clinics, shops, agencies, and you end up with a big spreadsheet of names. With that, but a raw list is not a plan. Which of these are actually worth contacting? So we are back with Codex, and who looks established, who has a website, who has strong reviews, and what would you even say when you reach out? We get a river here. I figuring that our row by row is slow, and most people just start at the top and hope for the best. This blueprint turns that raw list into a prioritized outreach plan. Here you can see the prompt we are using. But we ask the AgenticFlow CLI to deploy the map's lead enrichment pack blueprint, and we give it some local business rows. Are back with Codex row each the kind of fields you would export from a map search: the business name, its category, its rating, the number of reviews, whether it has a website and the city it is in. So as they are backlit, which these are the raw signals will turn into a ranked list. When we run it, Claude Code replores the prompt, deploys the workflow on AgenticFlow, and runs it once. Let me walk through the output. Instead of a flat spreadsheet, you get an enriched, prioritized lead list. Each business is scored using the signaled matter. A strong review count suggests an established operation. The presence or abs of a website tells you and something about how they might respond, and the category helps you tailor your pitch. Alongside the ranking, you get a suggested angle for reaching out to each one rep, so you're not staring at a blank message. And we're from Mesh. In short, you go from who is on the list to who to call first and what to say. So you're back with one thing worth of being clear about: the workflow works with data you provide and organizes it. So we claim it does not claim to have scraped anything live or contacted anyone. It is a draft to guide your outreach, which is exactly what you want it to be. You also to use this yourself, you will first need the AgenticFlow CLI installed. Our earlier videos cover the setup if you have not done it yet. Are back with the, and while we are using Claude Code in this episode, the same prompt works just as well in Code as edX or another coding agent, so use whichever you like. The quarter, a nice detail: the blueprint prioritizes agentic flows built in nodes, so it only consumes agentic flow credits when it runs. We are back with Codex done. Once it is done, we can jump over to agentic flow and review the whole workflow visually, confirming that each step was built and connected correctly. We are back with Codex. You can watch your plain list business to business flow through the nodes and come out as a ranked, ready to work list. Here is where the real value shows up. It's hardy, and any single enriched list useful, but the point is that you can do this again and again for any city and any category, so that and always get the same consistent prioritization. I'm Dapusi. That means your team stops wasting time on low quality leads and gets to the right conversations faster. With Eritrea, then, so I would really encourage you to try this with your own local business data. Our and watch how it watch how it enriches your list, connected to how your team actually does outreach, and tune it to fit. Go Wickerx and Narvo. Thanks so much for watching. If you've found this is helpful, please subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Agentic Flow channel. Today we're continuing our series on building real working workflows in just a few minutes using the AgenticFlow CLI together with an AI coding agent. This time we're driving it with Claude Code, and we're going to build something every marketing and founder team needs: a LinkedIn post and image kit, all from one prompt. First, the problem. Writing for LinkedIn is deceptively hard. Need a strong post, a few angles to test, alt text so the image is accessible, and a matching hero image to stop the scroll. Doing that by hand every time is exactly the repetitive, low value work that slows a small team down. So instead of adding another dashboard, we're going to automate the whole handoff. Here's the prompt we're using. We ask the AgenticFlow CLI to deploy the LinkedIn post image kit blueprint and we give it a short creative brief. The audience is B2B SaaS founders and product leaders. The topic is AI workflow automation for lean teams. The point of view is that small teams win when automation removes handoff work instead of adding dashboards, and the brand voice is sharp, practical, and founder friendly. Then we ask it to deploy run once and show us the recommended post, all the variants, the image, alt text, and the generated image URL. Now watch what Claude Code actually does, because this is the interesting part. It first tries to deploy the blueprint by name, but it turns out Linkin Post Image Kit is not a ship blueprint slug in the current CLI catalog. A lot of agents would just stop there. Instead, Claude Code treats that as a starting point, not a dead end. It inspects the available workflow node types, checks which ones can generate an image, and composes the equivalent workflow from scratch. You can see it exploring the building blocks. It dry runs a few node shapes to understand their inputs and outputs. Prior, it looks at the language model nodes for writing the post and the image generation node for the hero visual. It even checks the drop-down options for the model and the aspect ratio, so it wires everything up with valid values rather than guessing. What it lands on is a clean 3-step workflow. Step 1 writes the post, several variants, and the alt text. Step 2 distills that into focused image prompt, and Step 3 generates the hero image using a fast image model at a 16:9 aspect ratio. Trigger, user inputs 3 nodes, and then output. Simple and completely reusable. Once the workflow is built, Claude Code doesn't just assume it worked. It verifies the deployed workflow record, probes the actual web interface URL so we get a link that really resolves, and checks that the generated image URL is live by fetching it directly. That verification is what turns a demo into something you can trust and hand off to a teammate. Now let's jump over to AgenticFlow and look at the finished workflow. Here are the 3 steps laid out on the canvas exactly as Claude Code described them. If we open the Generate Hero Image step, we can see the image model, the prompt wired in from the previous node, the negative prompt, and the aspect ratio set to 16:9. Everything is connected and ready to run again whenever you need a fresh post. Let's look at the output from the run bar. The first thing we get is the recommended post written in that sharp founder-friendly voice we asked for. It opens with a strong hook, makes a clear point about automating handoffs instead of piling on dashboards, and ends with a question to drive engagement. Below it, we get the variants, including a contrarian take that reframes the same idea from a different angle, so you have options to test instead of a single guess. We also get the image alt text, which keeps your post accessible, and the generated hero image itself ready to attach to the post. Notice how naturally this maps onto a real content workflow. With one prompt, we went from a short brief to a complete ready-to-publish kit, a post, several variants, alt text, and a matching image. No copy-pasting between tools, and no manual handoffs. I genuinely encourage you to try this one yourself. Swap in your own audience, topic, and brand voice. Run it and see how close the first draft gets. Then think about the repetitive content tasks on your own team that a workflow like this could quietly take off your plate. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you found this walkthrough helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing for more episodes in this series, and we'll see you again in the next one. Until then, take care and have a wonderful day.